All right, welcome to Be the Market Expert. I wanted to kick it off this way. I got a lot of housing wire, but we're going to start off with homes.com. It says US will see moderately home price increases through the growth for the rest of the year. And next year, experts will forecast, right? So it says, but there's three markets that will continue to experience above average increases. So we look at this is kind of interesting, right? So what we know is this on average, since the 1990s, homes have appreciated 4% year over year, right? That's kind of what this thing has looked like since the 1990s. And what we did experience was we had astronomical growth, right? Especially back when money was free in 2020 through 2021, right? We saw that. And yet, when we're looking at this now, obviously we understand that's unattainable, or yeah, truly just we can't keep up that pace. And so we were looking at this thing, it says average home price growth expected to be moderate. And so if we look at this thing, here's 2025, and they're going to lean on 2.95%. Then we have 2026, 2.78. Then 2027, 3.38, 3.74, 3.68, 2029. First and foremost, no one has a crystal ball. And yet, as we're looking at this thing, this is one of those deals that if we're going to go through and we're going to have some conversations, be that real estate economist of choice, like this is probably something I'm going to have in my back pocket. And it might be something along the lines of, yeah, historically speaking, we've seen 4% appreciation year over year. And with everything going on in the economy, there's a lot of experts believe that we're probably going to hover around 3% over the next few years. And there's my script, right? We're going to go through and we're kind of going to lean on some of that stuff. It says, while home prices have not budged much, remaining on the high end in much of the United States, housing experts say prospective home buyers may see some relief in the final months of this year or next. More than 100 panelists who responded to the Fannie Mae 2025 Q2 home price expectation survey. It says forecast home prices growth to average around 295 by the end of this year. So 3%, let's round it up between friends, right? 3% home appreciation this year across the nation, right? There's going to be some markets that are going to carry this a little bit higher, some markets that are going to carry us a little bit lower. We're going to average out to that 3%. It says this is lower than estimates from the first quarter. Experts have forecasted home price growth between 3.4%, right? And so we're looking at this, and this is the reason why. At the end of the day, it's going to all boil down to interest rates. And while I do have a an article about interest rates as we're going through just around elevated mortgage rates, I think that this is very important. Like this is the conversation that we're going to be having. And so here we go. Expected home growth rates. And if we were to look at this thing, we can see that it says actually in Colorado, we could actually see pretty big decrease in performance, right? It says major metropolitan area performance relative to the national average. Okay, cool. So as we're looking at this thing, we're seeing that we could be decreasing, and this is the deal. A lot of that is around the inventory levels, right? We are pre-pandemic inventory levels in Colorado right now. We are one of a handful of states that is the case. And we understand with supply and demand, when we have high supply, lower demand, we start to see home prices go backwards. And I think this is going to be one of the conversations that we're going to be having inside of our four walls in our state, right? As we're going through and we're having these conversations, there's going to be people that are waiting for the market to bottom out. They're going to be waiting for the home crash, the Airbnb bust, the silver tsunami, the insert whatever here. And this is the deal. When we're looking at this thing, this is what I find interesting. Who is going to sell their home for a loss? And at the end of the day, it's going to be someone that is in a rock and a hard place, right? Like there's not going to be too many people that are going to go through and say, hey, I'm losing money on my house. Now's a great time to sell. And so while I do think that there's a lot of inventory on the market right now, I don't know how many of those people necessarily need to sell. And with that being said, how many of those people are in a net neutral equity position, right? When we're looking at this thing, they have some room to go down a little bit more. And that's what we're seeing. Quite frankly, like as we're looking through and we're looking at the homes that are currently on the market, right? We have this inventory that's on the market. And as we're going through, we have a home that's on the market. We have another home that hits. Where's that home coming? They're coming lesser. They're coming underneath the competition. And that's the important conversation that we, as real estate agents, as the real estate economists of choice, for the people inside of our ecosystem, the conversation that we need to be having is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, your competition, the market value of your home is not what has already been sold. It's actually what's currently on the market, right? Because as we're looking through, we need to be looking at the enemy method, if you will, right? To where we're actually going through and we're saying, awesome, where's all the current competition? Your competition isn't what sold last week. It isn't what sold last month. It isn't what sold last quarter. Your competition for the value of your home is in direct proportion to what is currently on the market, right? We know of the principle of substitution. We know that your consumers are not going to buy the most expensive product on the block. If there's another product that is apples for apples and serves the same purpose that is cheaper, right? Like that is the name of the game that we are in. So as we're going through and we're having conversations, we're sitting at that dining room table with our consumers and we're saying, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, what do you think your value of your home is? And we give them the time to speak, right? They're going to say, I believe that my home is X. And you say, thank you for sharing that with me. Based off of that, where are you finding this information to determine the value of your home? And that is where we're going to have the motivational conversation, right? We're going to figure out where they're doing their research. We know that there's a lot of feelings that are associated with the value of people's homes. So we're going to go through and we're going to figure out some things, right? So they're going to say, oh, well, we know that our neighbors sold their home X amount of days ago. Awesome. Well, do you know what's currently on the market in your neighborhood? And that's when we're going to be able to pull up the MLS. We're going to say, awesome. There's 3 other houses. They're in a quarter-mile radius that all look fairly similar to your house. This one's been on the market for 30 days. This one's been on the market for 45 days. This one's been on the market for 3 weeks. Based off of this information that I have given you, and you've come up here on the home value, and we have 3 other houses that have been on the market for longer, what makes you believe that your home value is X amount of dollars more, right? These are the conversations. That's a real estate economist of choice. Guys, this is what's going to set us apart from everybody else. This is all we should be doing. So as we're seeing some things where they're saying, hey, you know what? Expected home growth is sliding, right? Home growth is sliding because there's more inventory on the market. There's less demand. The cost of living is getting up there with the cost of money. And so as the real estate economist of choice, we need to be able to find the information, figure out what the motivations are, and have these tough conversations. I promise you guys, we're hearing conversations with people that have gotten into the business where they've never seen a price decrease market. Like, unfortunately for a lot of you guys on this call, like you're getting into a market where this is the only market you know, which is exciting, right? And so what we need to be able to do is be able to have the conversations. There are agents that have currently like, I don't know what this looks like. I have never been in a market where we've had price decreases. I've never been in a market where homes have sat on the market for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. I've never been in a market where I had a listing expire. And you guys are in this market to where you guys are in a great position because you guys are going to be learning what this market looks like and be able to have these conversations to be that real estate economist of choice, to come from a place of an educator. And through those education, you're going to be able to have some conversations with your people to say, hey, like, guess what? Your home is set on the market for 2-3 weeks. We've had 15 showings. We have not had a single offer. And we just saw a coming soon coming onto the market. And it looks like it's coming soon in the next 3 days. So we need to go through and maybe reposition your home so it's more favorable when that newer home hits the market. So we're looking through and we're looking forward. And I said this is going to be like a big housing wire push today. It says down payments are getting smaller as buyers scoop up FHA and VA loans. All right, cool. We're seeing this, right? And this makes sense to us. We're seeing that the cost of homes are not really going down, minimally, if anything. The cost of money is still fairly high to indirect proportion to what the cost of a home is, especially in Colorado, right? And we're looking at this thing. And so what makes sense? Well, it makes sense for people to go to a lower loan product, and they're looking to see if they can put lesser money down. It says, as of April 2025, the typical US home buyer's down payment was $62,000 down, which was 1% lower than what it was in the last 2 years. Okay, cool. So $62,000 is your down payment. This is a Redfin study. So as we're going through, it's saying they actually looked at this across 40 of the most populous US metropolitan areas, and we would be one of them. We would be one of the ones that rank on this list. It says the median down payment has hovered around 15% since the COVID-19 pandemic, which was up from 10% from in the preceding years. Down payments last declined in the summer of 2023, driven by falling home prices, right? So as we're looking at this, what we can see is that 2019 changed a lot of stuff, and we understand this. This is what bases most of the conversations that the real estate economist of choice for our consumers is having, is that we know that we're going to compare most every market to pre-2020. 2019 was the last normal market that we were in. And again, right, as we're going to go through this and we think of 2020, we had a global pandemic. 2021, we had the lowest interest rates we have ever seen. 2022, we saw it actually just go up at a rate and a velocity that we have never experienced as a nation. Like, it wasn't that they were the highest they've ever been. It's just that they went up like this very, very quickly, and it made all of us have this knee-jerk reaction. Then we go in, we're in 2023, 2024, 2025. They've stayed pretty elevated. Now, they went down a little bit, and we'll look at that here soon. But yet with that, we're going to base everything off of a pre-COVID environment to say, like, this is a normal market. We have not experienced a normal market in a very long time. It says when we're going through here, it says cooling home price appreciation has led to sellers outnumbering buyers. Again, this is some number that they have massaged to create their own deal, and the market shifting in the buyer's favor. Now, I do agree with that. We understand that we have more supply, less demand. We start to shift into more of a buyer's market. Now, what has typically created a buyer's market is we just look at the months of supply. Now, that might be an antiquated model, right? And we would look at months of supply equating to buyer's market, seller's market, balanced market. And yet, at the end of the day, what's really going to equate this, because we see it in pockets, and that's what gets very interesting. There's pockets in every state, every city, where some of the homes are lasting a weekend, some of the homes are lasting a couple months. And when we're looking at that, that means that we have these pockets. And with the conversation of buyer's market versus seller's market, it's no longer months of supply. It's more so buyer motivation and seller motivation, right? To where we go through and we're looking and we're having these conversations. And again, is the seller in a position where they need to sell? And is the buyer in a position where this is truly the right house for them? And they're going to have some negotiations back and forth. And I think that's what's dictating buyer's market versus seller's market at this point, not necessarily months of supply. We go through and we look into this thing a little bit more. It says the share of mortgage home sales using a VA loan was 7.2%. This marked the highest level for the month of April since 2020 and was up 6.4% from a year earlier. If we go through and we look at roughly 1 in 7 homes, 15% mortgaged homes used an FHA loan, which was up 14% a year earlier. Okay, cool. So there's 28%, right? As we're going through, or I'm sorry, there's 21% as we're going through this. It's up. And then it says conventional loans, 8 in 10, which was 77%. So cool. We got 21 and 77. We're pretty close to 100 at that point. So as we're looking at this, this is just under 1 in 3 homes sales were all cash in April, down slightly from 31%. So not a whole lot of change there. So we're still seeing people that have the cash, they're going out and they're purchasing homes with cash because the cost of money is a little bit higher. And what we're seeing is we're seeing an increase in lower down payments because of the cost of money and cost of living expenses are going up. So they're trying to put less money down and they'll eat it in the monthly payment because we understand this, especially with the FHA loan, there is a PMI that is going to be associated with it, which is just an insurance product that protects the lender for the riskier loan. So then your next article, right, it goes through and it says, how do you think about home prices for the rest of 2025? All right. It says the story for the housing market over the past 3 years have been home sales are down, home prices are up. And we get this. Guys, like, here's the most interesting thing about this. You guys are real estate agents in the market where we can talk about home prices going down. It's still some of the highest priced homes in our nation's history, right? Like this isn't the time period, right, where homes in the Denver metro average price point was $300,000. Our average price point is still in the sixes. So while we can talk about home prices going down all day long, we still have some of the highest price point homes that we have faced as as a civilization here in the United States. And we go through and it says because inventory was so restricted after the pandemic, prices pushed higher, right? Because we did see that. While we typically see that 4% appreciation year over year, in 2021, with the interest rates being as low as they were to recover from the global pandemic and to infuse money into the economy, what we saw was gangbusters in real estate. And it was zero fun. It was zero fun. And when we went through there, we saw that people were going $100,000 over asking. They were waiving inspection. They were giving up the naming rights to their firstborn child. Like, they were willing to do anything to win the deal. And we're just not in that anymore. But what that did was that rose home prices. Like, just because that everything just happened doesn't mean that we automatically go back down 10% in appreciation. Like, that doesn't happen. Now we're already up here. Now what we do see is it just starts to trickle down a little bit and a little bit. And again, a lot of that's going to be dictated by, am I in a position where I need to sell my house? That dictates a lot. So we go through and it says available inventory of homes on the market is back to pre-pandemic range with 826,000 single family homes unsold on the market as of mid-June. That's 32% more than this time last year. And we'll look at that in the next article. But we almost have 1/3 more inventory right now than we did last year. And again, like, when we look at this, this is what's driving home prices to start trickling down a little bit. It's because there's a lot of inventory. And when we go in, it says it took 3 full years, but the supply of unsold homes has finally built sufficient to put downward pressure on prices. Demand remains very low. And here's the thing, guys, this is what makes this thing so much different than what it was in 2026 or 2006. I'm sorry, 2006, right? Through 2008, in that time period, this was a mortgage crisis, right? We actually had flowing money that was going out into the economy, but yet we didn't have a lot of jobs. And then people weren't paying their mortgages. And we created this whole issue. We're not there. There's lower demand because of the cost of money. And I think that's very important as we're framing any conversation with our consumers, being that real estate consumer or that real estate economist of choice. One of the things that we need to be able to do is say, like, listen, totally get it. Totally get what 2006 looked like, right? We had the rise of the zombie foreclosure in 2006. And if you're unfamiliar with the zombie foreclosure, what we had is people getting a second, a third, and a fourth mortgage, which was a house, right? So I had my primary residence, I had a second, I had a third, and I had a fourth. And see, that wasn't the issue. The issue was back then, We didn't have Airbnb. We didn't have VRBO. Well, we weren't super educated around all these rental processes that we could have jumped into. And so these homes were sitting vacant. They were going through and the lenders were going and they only had one test to see if you qualified for a mortgage. And they would literally just hand you a mirror. And if you could fog it, they signed off on it. Like that's what it looked like. It looked like going to get a Kohl's credit card for your $50 off. That was the process. And so that time is not right now. The issue that we're running into right now is you guys are living in one of the highest price points, right? Especially in Colorado, we're disproportionately affected. Your guys' average price point in the Denver metro, $600,000. $600,000 at a 7% interest rate, that's expensive. That's what's slowing this down. And so what's interesting is we're going to look at another article here, and it's going to show you purchase application data. So what's interesting about all of this is this. I don't think that your consumers are necessarily waiting for interest rates to come down. I don't think that's the game that we're playing right now. I think they're waiting for the right home that meets all their needs before they pull the trigger. They're out there getting qualified. We're going to look at that here in a second. So we go through and says, as of June 6th, we measure 11 states with home prices at or below their 2024 levels. So here we go. So in Colorado, they're saying that our home prices are a little bit less than what they were last year. And we can see this. And here's your visual representation of that, right? Here's Colorado. If anyone didn't know where Colorado was on the map, here we are. And we can look at this. We're one of a handful of states, right? We understand Texas. We understand Florida, right? We know this was the boom when we were going through and we had these digital nomads that were able to work from anywhere and still be able to bring in the same amount of money that they were bringing in. And so what has happened was these two states actually took it if we build it, they will come mentality. And they went building and building and building gangbusters. And what happened there was people stopped coming. And now they have a lot of inventory. And they have a lot of inventory. And so home prices are going down because that's the only way that you're going to be able to compete with your neighbor. So when we're looking at it, this is also a little bit interesting. It says over 62% now expect home prices to decline in 2025. What's your current forecast for the home prices of 2025? Is it up 0 or 5 up, 0 to 5, down 0 to 5, down 5 or more? And so we're looking at this thing and just here it is, right? We're going through and there's still some people that are like, oh no, home prices are going to go up. But there's also 13% that says, yeah, home prices are probably going to go down more than 5%. But there is a vast majority that says, you know what, it's probably going to go down 0 to 5. If not, stay up 0 to 5. So we look at this, and again, there's no crystal ball. These are your real estate economists that are going through and they're looking at all the data. And we can see that for the most part, yes, more than 50% says down, but there's still a pretty big piece, right? Where we're looking at this thing, it says 38% says up. And so we're going through, and this is what all this is saying. We don't have a crystal ball. And so none of us on this call are in a position to where we're going to be able to talk to anyone and say, hey, I know you didn't want to, but you're going to buy a house this year, right? And firstly, that's not what any of us want to do. So the only job that we're going to go through is firstly make sure we're educated, right? We're going to go through, we're going to make sure that we know what interest rates are. We're going to know what our lender vendors have for us, right? Our vendor partners, as far as products go. We're going to be able to talk about inventory. We're going to say why this isn't 2008. We're going to be able to talk a little bit about zombie foreclosures and the tests that lenders had to give mortgages, to give loans out. And then we're going to go through and we're going to figure out what their motivations are. Because guess what? It might not be the best time for someone to buy. It might not be the best time for someone to sell. And as we're going through at the dining room table and we're having the conversation, or at Starbucks, and we're having the conversation with them and figuring out their motivations, it very well could be the best time. And yet we don't know. So we're going to go through. And as we look at this, this is why the economists slightly are more optimistic than consumers. It's very unusual for home prices to decline in any given calendar year compared to previous ones. Outside of the great financial crisis, annually home prices, as measured by the Case-Shiller Index, have fallen only once since the 1990s. Guys, that's what we're looking at. Like, as we're looking at this thing, home prices don't typically go down. And so what's interesting is that we all lived through that time where they did. And whether we were in a home buying era or not, this is what people base it off of. Unfortunately, people also base interest rates off of what we had in 2021, which was a gift from God. We will never have interest rates at a 3% ever again. Most economists believe that we're going to land around 5.5%, and that's where we will live. And so while people are waiting and trying to time the market, there is no timing the market. Remember, the crystal balls are in the shop and they're not coming back. So let's go through this. It says elevated mortgage rates aren't discouraging home buyers. Guys, check this out. Let's start here. It says why aren't home sales crashing as they did in 2022? It says right now we have elevated mortgage rates, trade war uncertainty, rising property taxes and home insurance, terrible consumer confidence, and a downgrade on the government's debt, among other factors, right? Like we have all kinds of stuff that's happening, like Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Iran. Like there is, guys, it is madness out there. And as we look at this, if we were to scroll down, let's just go to this visual, guys. If you don't hear anything or see anything except for this is all I want you to see. All the uncertainty, all the bad news in the press, high home prices, mortgage rates, pretty elevated. Guys, consumers are still reaching out to lenders to figure out what they qualify for. Tons of inventory out there. Homes are sitting on the market. And yet there are people that are raising their hand and talking to lenders to figure out how much money they qualify to go purchase a home. Now, why is that? Right? And again, there's no crystal balls like there. Who knows what the psychology of a buyer is in this market? And yet, when we look at this, I can tell you that I've had conversations with lenders, and the consumers are pretty much saying, listen, it's not that I don't want to go buy a house. It's just that I'm not going to go settle. Your buyers don't want to settle right now, but they're still going out to figure out how much they can qualify for. And so when we look at this thing, we know historically speaking, home prices go up. Home prices go up every year. We just saw the economists are saying, hey, 3+% over the next couple of years, they're going to go up still nationwide. And we look at this, and home price or mortgage rates, the cost of money hasn't drastically gone down, but yet your consumers are reaching out to lenders to figure out what they qualify for. So what are we doing? What are we doing to get in front of people? What are we doing to take massive mind share? I saw something the other day. I probably should have brought it up. I put it out on our Facebook group. And it was the top platforms that consumers visit daily: YouTube, Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, a handful of other stuff. And yet, when we look at this thing, what are we doing to have voice to voice, face to face, text to text conversations? What are we doing to when people are scrolling on this thing, as people do, to where they are seeing the message from us? We are their news channel. We are the conduit to do all things real estate, and so that they are educated. Guys, because here's the deal. We see this every year. Hi, my name is Charles, and it has happened to me, to where you go through and you believed that you were somebody's real estate agent and they used somebody else. And it's not because they liked them more. It's not because they thought they were a better real estate agent. It's because they were in emotional proximity to them when they were thinking about transacting business. So we cannot have our own feelings on what mortgage rates are doing and home prices and insert whatever here. Our job is to report the news. Our job is to say, this is how home buyers can win in this market. This is what the average concession looks like. This is how much inventory is on the market. So if you're a home buyer, this is what it means to you. There are motivated sellers out there that are looking to sell their house. And we have tons of levers to pull in the contract to buy and sell to help you win. This is what my lender partner is doing to offer incentives. This is what the new build is offering to make their home even more appealing than a brand new home. You also get all of the appliances and insert whatever here. Guys, report the news. This shows me right here that people are looking to figure out, does it make sense for me to move? And they're getting qualified to pull the trigger. How devastated will you be when you go to that barbecue next week and your buddy says, oh, that's right, you were a real estate agent. I forgot, but I'm actually under contract on a new house. No one wants that conversation. It's our job to report the news. And this is hugely important, guys. This is a big spike. You can see that here we are after this divot. We have popped back up. We are well above 2024, right? We look at this thing. This is a 20% growth year over year and a 10% growth week over week. Which one of these was your consumer that didn't tell you that they were interested in buying a house and they went and spoke to a lender first? Your pending home sales, guys, we're still higher than 2024. High interest rates, inventory on the market, people are still buying. We go through, here's your total pending sales, right? To where we look at this, we're still above 23. We're still above 24. We will intersect with 2022. It's just a matter of time. We are going to be higher. We're not going to talk about the 10-year yield. We're not going to talk about mortgage spreads. Let's talk about inventory, guys. This is important. 33% more inventory than last year. Guys, if we were to look at this and we were to have these conversations, guys, this is what's important. As a seller, we need to make sure that we're looking and seeing what all the competitors in the area are doing now, not what they did a month ago, not what they did last week, not what they did last quarter. What's happening in the market currently? We don't want to sit. As the home buyers, guys, there's opportunity. There's tons of opportunity. There's motivated sellers out there. How are they going to make sure that they're better than their competitors, the other houses? Well, they're going to have to be able to give us something in return. What do we want to negotiate? Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, how can I help you win? Concessions? We know. North of $8,000 in the Denver Metro. Let's do it. My compensation? Let's negotiate it in there. You're looking for a home warranty? Rock and roll. Let's do it. Guys, like there's tons of mechanisms that we can pull. Let's be that real estate economist of choice. There's tons of inventory. The only way for them to be better than their competitor is to have a better sales price. New listing data, guys, we look at this thing, we're still higher, more inventory. We know this. There's listings, there's tons of inventory. And with tons of inventory, we have price cuts. Guys, we know that 1/3 of all homes, historically speaking, take a price cut every year. We're sitting at about 40%. 40% of all homes. Again, what this tells me, there's motivated. And again, if I list my home and someone comes onto the market, what are they doing? They're coming underneath us. So then how do I make this home look more favorable than this home? Well, I got to get cheaper. Price cut. Guys, this makes sense. Supply and demand. How do I bring in more demand for my home when there's a ton of supply? I have to make it look favorable in the consumer's eyes. Well, if I can't change the location, I'm not going to rehab the entire home. I'm not going to go through and do X, Y, Z. What can I do? I can price cut. And guys, that's what we're seeing. Jobless claims. Guys, we're still in line, right? Like this is the only thing that is going to drop rates in any meaningful matter is if anybody, and I say anybody, a lot of people lose their jobs. And again, for the sake of this conversation, I want to let you guys know that a recession, guys, you can hear recession talk all day long. A recession is actually good for our industry. All right, hard stop. None of us are cheering for a recession. We do not cheer for other Americans to lose their job. All right, we're not doing that. We're not here for it. But I do want you guys to know, like, if we go into a recession, then what happens from there is actually rates start to go down and more people raise their hand that they're interested in buying, right? The affluent don't typically lose their jobs, right? What you see is the people that actually don't have great paying jobs to begin with are the ones that actually lose their jobs. And yes, there's going to be a handful of other people, but yet a recession is actually really good for us. Now, we're not rooting for this. We're not praying for this at night. Like, none of that's going to happen. Right. So this is something that we will continue to watch because if this number does skyrocket here and stay elevated, the only thing the Fed can do to stimulate the economy is to drop rates. And what's going to happen at that point is, or the cost of money, then what happens at that point is that we actually do see people start to purchase and we'll start to see a lot of this inventory come back off the board, which again causes a frenzy and it gets a little bit weird. Not 2021 weird, but still weird. So it says the key for the Fed meeting is to listen to their language on the risk of the labor versus inflation. Since the labor data has become softer, but the inflation data has not yet worsened, right? Where it's saying that, hey, we don't have huge prices on everything yet, except for I did see something scary. I don't know if you guys saw this. I did see that there are companies out there right now that they are changing actually their pricing systems in the stores, right? To where they're going through and they're indexing pricing and they can just change it from a hub and wherever their store's main system is located and they just push the button. So you don't have people going through and price changing all day long, which is kind of the system now. So they can actually go through and say, you know what, X just happened. So let's just raise the price of water, or we have low inventory on this. So let's raise it up and let's drive some sales. I actually think that that's kind of the systems that we're running into. I think King Soopers is looking at that. Walmart, Target, all these companies are looking into it right now. So it's going to be very interesting to watch that happen. And it says, as always, we're going to be keeping a close eye on the data this week. Let's look at rates, guys. So check this out. Here's 1 month. Guys, this is pretty solid. Like as we're looking at this thing, and here we are. So we're at 6.5 for FHA. We're at 6.8 for 30-year conventional. So they've gone down a little bit, right? They popped up a little bit, but right, what this is, what we're probably seeing here, if I were to speculate, it's probably what's happening in Russia and what's happening in Ukraine, and then what's happening in Iran and with Israel right now, right? Like again, war is also one of the things that starts dropping the cost of money because people start to panic a little bit. Again, we're definitely not rooting for that. Like while we're not rooting for people to lose their jobs, we're absolutely not rooting for war. And so this actually caused some uncertainty as well, to where we do see rates kind of go down a little bit. So I'm speculating that's probably what this is. And so again, but what we do like is this is pretty flat. Guys, sellers become buyers. And so as we're looking at this, this is what we want to see. We live in the United States of America. We should be able to forecast out what the interest rates look like. When we go through and we know that homes are sitting on the market a little bit longer, we want the interest rates to stay a little bit more flat. And this is what they're doing. Yeah, we got these little bits of spikes here, but this is not what we want to see, right? This is 1 year's worth of data. This is third world country lending right here, to where you cannot even go through and guess what a month is going to look like. And this is where people start to want to time the market. And they're like, oh, I just missed this big dip. I need to wait for it, right? This is what we want. Little blips on the radar, these little baby roller coasters. This is what we want. This gets people comfortable. This gives people comfortable to list their home because they feel like, okay, a month, 2 months down the road, it's still going to be pretty flat. So I'm not going to lose purchase power. This gives people as buyers to go through and they can say, hey, things have been pretty steady. I don't think there's going to be any big blips on the radar to where I need to hold out and time the market and jump into it. This is where we're seeing purchase application. People are raising their hand. They don't feel like they need to time anything. And this is where we win. This is the news that we need to be delivering. Interest rates are pretty flat. Inventory's up. We have negotiation powers in Colorado right now where we're seeing concessions around $8,000 on average per home. If you don't know what a concession is, send me a DM, right? Like these are all the cool things that we should be doing to be that real estate economist of choice. And again, just being the educator. Guys, we in this time, we are in a skills-based market. We left the speed-based market behind in 2021. We are in a skills-based market now to where the most educated, the people that are staying in front of their people, the people that are in emotional proximity to their consumers when their consumers are ready to transact, those are the agents that are going to win in this market. Our only job is to reach out to our people, provide information, and you guys, you will win. I promise you that.